October 9th, 2012, the Pakistani writer and activist Malala Yousafzai was shot by a Taliban gunman. At the time, she was only 15. Though she was seriously injured, she lived, and her story was thrown into the center of the media. She went on to put all of her energies into working for the right of all children to an education, and at the age of 17, she became the youngest ever recipient of a Nobel Peace Prize. That's the introduction to the poem which you find in your thoughts before worship today, Malala by Michaela Morgan. A girl with a book. A girl with a book. That's what has scared them, a girl with a book. They get onto the bus, they call out my name, they aim and they fire a shot to the brain. Because a girl with a book, a girl with a voice, a girl with a brain, a girl with a choice, a girl with a plan to have rights like a man. That's what they're scared of. One girl with a book. A girl who has words. A girl with a pen. A girl to be heard with support of her friends who want to live free. That's what they fear. A girl like me. As we prepare for the word preached, would you join with me, your hearts and minds, in prayer? O God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be found acceptable in your sight, for you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Jeremiah, whose call we read about today, began his prophetic ministry around the age of 22, which means that scene, the scene that Chase read for you this morning, where Jeremiah goes around and around and around with God about his call and his doubt about his call due to his young age, happens when Jeremiah is your age, campus ministry students. Yes, your age. So listen today, because this is especially for you and for the other students gathered here for worship today, and for the high school students and the middle school students and the elementary students who are here today. But it's also a message for all of us. Yes, there are young prophets in our midst, prophets who need to be encouraged, and people who need to be encouraged to receive what young prophets have to offer. See, that's what I love about this glimpse into the cycle of theophany, commissioning, rejection, rebuke, reassurance that happens over and over and over again when God comes calling. It works both ways. It plays, if you're like Jeremiah, completely and totally freaked out by the prospect that you're called to do something big, a little out of your league, a little beyond your reach, and it plays if you are looking at someone who you believe to be a little out of their league and a little beyond their reach. For the former, the excuses are personal. Campus ministry students and all students here today, perhaps you've uttered some of these same words. What? Me? I'm a kid, really, still. I'm too young. I'm too experienced. What do I know? They won't listen to or believe me. I will be dismissed. Sound familiar? And for the latter, The excuses are projected. Students among us, perhaps you've heard these same excuses uttered from someone toward you. What? You? You're just a kid still. Yes, really. You're too young, far too inexperienced. What do you know? We are not listening. You are not to be believed. You're dismissed. Sound familiar? No matter where you find yourself in this story, God's rebuke of the rejection comes as a swift spiritual butt-kicking that launches the young prophet into action and launches anyone poised to dismiss into listening mode. For God says, "Don't say to me, I'm too young. You're going to go where I send you. You're going to say what I command you. Don't be afraid," God says. "I've got you. Before you were even born," God says, "I appointed you to this." So campus ministry students and all the young people who sit among us this morning, who are beginning a new year of study and growth and exploration, perhaps today is a good day to ask yourself, what is it that God has appointed me to do? What is God equipping me to do? What is God assuring me that I can do? And what excuses have I come up with lately? What nudge have I felt deep in my soul? What still speaking voice have I heard in the night beckoning me beyond? What question am I wrestling with? And what big problems have I longed to solve? Perhaps it's time to quit arguing with God, to stop dragging our feet and just go do it already. Because really, all the energy we spend resisting the pull of the holy would be better served in the service of the holy anyhow. Don't think it will be easy. After all, just a few verses later, beyond what Chase read for us, God says to young Jeremiah, "Gird up your loins," which is just Bible speak for fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Now, congregation, if you're on the other side of this great appointment, if you find yourself, skeptical of these kids today, if young people using their voices to make our world a more just and peaceful place for all makes you uncomfortable because they demand change, remember first that God calls prophets to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. If young people like Greta Thunberg, the teenage climate change activist, or Rayanne Christine Maximo Franca, the 25-year-old indigenous youth activist from the Amazon, or Malala, the 22-year-old education activist and Nobel Prize laureate, or Alex Wind and Cameron Kasky, David Hogue, Emma Gonzalez, and Jacqueline Corinne, survivors of the Parkland shooting who have turned their pain into policy change and revealed their peace plan for a safer America just this week. If these young people make us uncomfortable, maybe we should listen carefully to the call of Jeremiah this morning, to the reassurance that God gives to the young prophet. When we see people, yes, even and especially young people, leveraging their power for the common good, we can be assured that the words of God to young Jeremiah ring true down through the ages. Now I have put my words in your mouth, God says. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms. On this Sunday of Quad Day, when we, as a church, look up again and see that our young neighbors have returned to campus, 33,955 undergraduate neighbors, plus graduate students have returned to campus. Well, then there's no better passage to read and remember than this one. To remind ourselves that whether we are young and discerning where the world's deep needs and our greatest joys meet, or whether we are on the receiving end of what these young people have to offer, it is good to remember that God has known us since before we were born. These kids today, you have been consecrated and appointed, sent out and commanded. You are called. You have everything you need. So don't be afraid. God is with you. And gird up your loins, because it's not going to be easy. So let's be real for a moment. Students, all of you who are young people in this room, your generation is facing a world with problems to solve never before faced by humanity. You are also facing a world with more resources available to us than ever before. So we all must remember, as my friend January put it, it's not the responsibility of young folks to save the world, in the sense that they're the only ones who can or should do the work. It's not their job and no one else's. But you, young people, have this responsibility. You are necessary to the good work that must be done. You are necessary to the movement to solve all of the problems that face us, and there are many. Speaking now, as someone old enough to be your mother, in a room full of people also old enough to be your parent, along with people old enough to be my parents, and yes, a few old enough to be their parents, I say, we need your voice. We need your experience of the world. We need your point of view. You possess voices and experiences and points of view that we older folks simply do not have. And so, when we catch a glimpse of the call of Jeremiah in each of you, all of us are better able to do the work that is before us. We all have that responsibility. And what a gift it is for us to be here with you in community together. Yes, your generation has responsibility to act, and we have responsibility to respond. You can bring things to the table that nobody else can bring. Those things are valuable and important and necessary for ensuring that all of creation moves forward creatively and successfully. So young people among us today, campus ministry students, graduate students, high school students, middle school students, elementary students, don't relinquish the value that you have or shrug it off as unimportant. Or in Bible speak, don't just say, I'm just a kid. You have work to do, divine work that only you can do, and it starts now. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Amen.